Hey there, I'm Ginny.
And I'm Monica.
And this is Hitting Her Mark,
Podcast for women in the arts, actors, filmmakers, artists who are passionately chasing their creative dreams.
all juggling the beautiful chaos of caring for the ones you love.
We're here to share stories, insights, and inspiration, proving that you can hit your mark without compromising what matters most.
So if you're ready to make your creative dreams a reality, let's dive in.
Lara Arabian is a trilingual, Dora-nominated, Toronto-based performer by way of Beirut, Lebanon, upstate New York, and Paris, France. She is best known as Mrs. Ada on the hit show Kim's Convenience. Other recent TV credits include The Handmaid's Tale, Murdoch Mysteries, Taken, and Dark Matter, while her film work has been showcased at several international film festivals. Lara is also an accomplished stage actress who has worked in theaters across Canada, even learning how to do aerials for the show The Silver Arrow at Edmonton's Citadel Theatre. Lara's one-woman show, Siranush, will be running at the Next Stage Festival at the Tank House Studio at Soul Pepper from July 2nd to the 13th. Welcome, Lara Arabian, to the podcast. I had the great pleasure of working with Lara in 2022 on a play called The House of Bernarda Alba, which was a joint production by Luna Theatre and Modern Time Stage. Since then, I've seen Lara in multiple plays. Rubble was one of them at Theatre Passe Muraille, and the other was Siranush, which was at the Factory. And we will definitely talk about that later in our conversation. But Lara has an extensive theater, film, and TV career. She's also a trilingual performer, which we'll also get into, as I know you perform a lot in French as well. So let's just dive in. Lara, we like to kick off every episode, sort of starting from the beginning. So I know you completed your acting training at the Banff Citadel Professional Theater Program, but where did your artistic path begin for you?
My goodness. Okay. Great question. First of all, I just want to say so delighted to be here and thank you for that introduction. Where did my I feel that I know this sounds so cheesy, but like always this way. I was one of those kids, and I talk about this in my show, where like I used to practice crying in the mirror. Like I was like, I'm going to be that person. I want to so I don't know if it was it was a conscious decision, I think, as a teenager of realizing the consciousness came from not everyone thinks I should be doing this.
It's cute when you were little.
Yes. And then it's like, is this, as an immigrant? And my parents are like, this is not a viable career path. But I was pretty determined. I think you have to be pretty stubborn, slightly delusional and stubborn.
Agree.
Yes. Yep, for sure. So I didn't get to go to an arts high school, which was my dream, like being in the world of fame or something like that. In fact, I even wrote to Fame when I was a kid. I was so delusional that I wrote to them and delivered it to the hotel in New York City when I was a kid. And I was like,
no way.
Yes,
I love that.
I love me on your show. I'll be the younger sister. So all of this to say, it was all in there. And then I ended up going to the University of Toronto and to the University College drama program there. And then I graduated from that and had always wanted to go to France and live in France. I'd been to France, but I always wanted to live there. So I continued my training there in French because I did speak French. I do speak French, and ended up living there for way longer than I thought I would live there, and did a bunch of training.
How long were you there for?
I was there for almost 10 years. It was 8 years over a 10-year period. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Not what I thought would happen. And did lots of different things. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff with legal papers, not legal papers. It's very boring, but continue to work.
With your French, did you take French, or was that how did you learn French? Or did you learn how did that happen?
So I had been lucky enough to go to France. My dad worked there back and forth, and he had friends. So when I was 16, I got to spend a month there with family, friends. And that's the intensive. That's when you're,
okay. And then that's why you already knew that you wanted to be there.
Yeah, I knew, but it's really not when you go and you have to live there for more than a month, or like a family isn't taking care of you, where you realize like, oh, I don't know the word for screwdriver and something's wrong with my, the door of my apartment and I need to get this fixed. So it was the intensive. I ended up going to the Sorbonne and I did my master's there. And yeah, it was a really interesting time because I was also very much exposed to art, theater that I had not been exposed to here. And so that really opened doors and helped shape my aesthetic in terms of what was possible and what I was really interested in, because Paris is such a crossroads for other theater companies from around the world to come and do the work there. So, and it wasn't just theater, it was, all different kinds of art, the museums, dance, cinema, but really, yeah, it was theater that I got to see from former, Soviet republics or Eastern Bloc countries and around the world that really kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh, that really excites me. And then I came back and started working. And then the Banff Conservatory is an interesting thing because it's actually for professional actors. I think
Interesting.
it's very much for professionals as a way to go back and then do the things that it's like a gym. It's like an actor's gym that you get to go back and do scene study. So the actors that were there, they had been professionals there's 12 of us that were chosen from across the country. I think over 500 applied, auditioned. I was such a great honor to be there for a month. And then we all did a show at the Citadel together for 2.5 months. So it's very much for professional actors as a way to refocus and give ourselves the time, to go back to the nuts and bolts of what we do.
That is incredible. Yeah. Did you find that there were people in the later stages of their career as well? Like not just newcomers to the industry? Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Because I find it hard to find I would love to go back to theater school.
Totally.
At this stage in my life.
With the level of appreciation, right? Because oftentimes when you're a teenager and, I went to a dramatic arts high school. And that's where, I kind of learned the ropes there, but you don't appreciate it when you're 15, and then into your 19, you don't appreciate it. And I think it would be so lovely to be able to do that again now.
Yeah, as a professional.
As a professional, it is a bit of a gift. Like it's a gift. You're there for 1 month in Banff, paid for, by the way. It is all, everything is taken care of. Your meals are prepared for you. Your bed is made. Everything is for. I know.
That's a dream. Oh my goodness.
Vacation
was amazing. It was amazing. And the group, and because there are performers from all across the country, you build these ties with these people. It was pretty incredible.
How long was that program?
I think it was at least 7 or 8 years. I know there was a cohort after us, and then the program was COVID and many things was paused, and it's come back, but I think it's come back for newer actors. I think the way they framed it, but it might come back again. And if it ever does, I honestly can't recommend it highly enough. It is one of those things where, just like you said, Jenny, you don't appreciate it until you go back and you're like, yes, check off every day for 3 hours, please.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Lara, what was your first introduction into the industry then? So you've done all this training. When did you start to work? What was the first sort of jobs? Was it theater work? And I'm kind of also interested in how that kind of bled into film and television. When did things start for you?
So I had worked a little bit in France, mainly in theater. So I had done that there. And then when I came back, because I had gone to U of T, I thought, I have contacts, but things change 10 years later. It was really just that cloud, hitting the pavement, submitting. And it was theater. So I started first with theater and doing shows. Actually, my first show back, it was an independent production, but it was at Theatre Passe Muraille. And then it was a friend of mine who knew the artistic director at Theatre Passe Muraille and said, it was my high school drama teacher actually, who said, I'm from Saskatchewan. He's from Saskatchewan. I know him. Call him up and tell him you're in town and you'd like to meet him. I was like, you can't just do that. What? Call the artist? What? I can't. What? Call him. And I'm so grateful that I did. And bless his soul, it was Lane Coleman, who was the artistic director at the time. He said, come down, audition for me. It wasn't the generals or anything. He's like, I'd love to meet you. And I did. And he decided to take me under his wing. And I apprenticed as an artistic director under him. But more importantly, as an actor, I think within a month or two of auditioning with him and him saying come on board, he said, there's a show in our next season. I'm not directing it, but so it's at CoPro in Halifax. And he's like, I think you should be in it. And he contacted the director. I auditioned for him. And then that was the first, and I got it. And I was,
exciting.
It was really exciting. It was a co-pro with Neptune and
just travel. Had you ever been to Halifax before?
No, I hadn't. It was delightful and a very special project because it was over 18 months, almost 2 years. So we went back and forth and we performed there, we performed here. But just in that sense, because I teach acting now, and I always just tell my students, like, make the call, reach out to people. You do not know. You have no idea, right? Like, please, 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 because people, I think, are excited to meet people who are just as enthusiastic about it. Right. And so that way, and I started, with Nightwood Theatre, just contacted them. It's like, I think you're great. What can I do? And they brought me on board as an associate artist on a new Diane Flax show. And I recently saw Diane and I was like, do you remember I was the quiet person in the corner, just kind of feeling like, just so overwhelmed and delighted, but scared out of my mind. So just put yourself out there is what I say, for sure.
Yes. You're also prepared too, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do the work. Yes. Be ready.
Yes.
For sure.
And coming at it also as a point of service of like, what can I do? How can I help you? What can I do to help out? You were helping in this artistic director role, and look how that bled into you getting a part in a show, right?
Yeah.
You never know what those stepping stones are going to
really,
be.
Yeah. You really do. And everything feeds into each other, right? Like, I think the work, so much of what we do, it really does feed into each other, for sure. So I started off doing quite a bit of theater and then slowly doing more film. I did a lot of indie film and then like non-union. And then my first union was with Little Mosque on the Prairie. Yeah. Back in the day.
Yes.
That show. Yes.
Yeah. And so how did you find that transition? Like going from doing a lot of theater going into TV?
You know what? At first it was really tough because now they do on-camera training in theater schools. But when I was right, I can see you shaking your head.
At George Brown, my 3-year program, there was one film class. And as soon as you graduate, you're auditioning. I was auditioning for filming commercials and I didn't know what to do.
I was clueless in the sense of, that idea of like, how do you harness your energy? How do you work with your energy with a camera? Mm-hmm. And for commercials as well. So I remember I took a commercial workshop when I first came back because everyone's like, commercials, you make so much money. Yay, commercials. And I won't say who it was with, but they were like the commercial people in the city. And I did this weekend workshop and I thought it, was great. There was great feedback and thought I was just cruising along. And at the end of it, one of the people who was running the workshop came up to me and said, you know what? I think you're great. I think you're really great and very talented. I was like, oh, thanks. Great. I was just selling Tide, but okay. And then he goes, but I want you to know you're never going to work in commercials. And
exact words? That's horrible.
Exact words. He said, I'm telling you this because you're too exotic. You're too different. You're too exotic. And the housewives are going to be intimidated by you. It's like, do I have 3 heads? Like, what are you? Right? It was, things have changed since 2020.
Yeah. Was 2020?
No, it was before that. I just want to say that things have, before that, it was so shocking. And this person was offering it as in, I'm doing you a favor. Listen, I want to help you. Right? But what a bonkers thing to say to someone.
Absolutely.
Who's just paid money to
completely, right?
Yeah, don't accept me into your fucking workshop. Don't take my shit. Don't take my money and then tell me I'm never going to work.
You saw what I look like. Like, come on. I know.
Get you a headshot.
We were talking about this, Jenny, in another episode with another actor too, as of like these limiting beliefs. Like there's been times in your life, like we were talking about one person who was told she could never sing. I think it was Angelina Jolie was talking about this in an interview. She just did that movie where she plays the operatic singer. And you go through life with this, well, that one person told me like 20 years ago that I can't sing. So now I just say I can't sing. And how do we, how
overcome that? And then
limiting thoughts.
And then sometimes you spend your life and you don't really know, but your whole life is like proving them wrong.
Yeah.
Which also is not great, right? Like it's good to that push. But then you get to a point where you're just like, I gotta do it. And it's like, whoa, like, why? Why are you pushing so hard?
Yeah.
I do think self-awareness as an actor is so important because we've been brought up a lot of the times to think, and I think that's like really intriguing when you're a child or when you first develop this like wanting to be an actor thing is because you're like, oh, I want to play. I want to be someone else. But really, when you get down to it, it's like, no, it's about how well do you know yourself?
Yeah.
And if you were put in this situation, how do you present? And that's what they want to see. And that's when, things tend to work out.
Yeah. That idea of the character is you and.
Yeah.
So, Lara, how did you overcome this, like these limiting beliefs? How did you move forward in this landscape?
It was, again, slightly delusional and stubborn. I mean, I just remember being so shocked, gobsmacked by it. It was, what I'll say is, it was something I encountered over and over again, like the too exotic. You couldn't, being slotted into certain
Did you
categories.
find you were typecast
for sure
because of it?
For sure, the character.
Did they ask you to do an accent? Yes, I was going to say
always.
that.
I once had someone. I walked in and they said, "Oh, I'm surprised you don't have an accent with your name and the way that you look." It was so weird. What? But very much so. Also being, I'm Armenian, but from Lebanon and also having family in Syria, that idea of like the hijab role, is, and I'm super happy to represent, like it is, there's some beautiful stories and I'm so proud of so much, but it is also,
it's about the writing too, right? When the writing is good and it makes sense, then absolutely.
You're not just slotting me in there to like check a mark.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Or to perpetuate a stereotype.
Absolutely. But then it is also like, why am I always going out for this kind of a thing, So I was like, I know this sounds so cheesy. I was like, just get better, just be super stubborn. And what I also did was like, okay, you want to use me that way? Like you want to bring me in fine. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put my elbow pads on. I'm going to get that role. And then I'm going to do this and this and this and this and make space for myself that way. And,
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, you open the door, I'm going to kick it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great way to look at it. And I wanted to ask about, because being a BIPOC person, I was often asked like, oh, can you do a Asian accent? Just Asian in general. And I'm like, it's a large continent, people. For me, I speak Cantonese, and that's like really the only thing. I actually have a very hard time trying to do a Cantonese accent for sure, but even like a Mandarin accent, I don't know why, but it's like really hard for me. You having all of these languages, how do you navigate that when you do need to tap into an accent?
Because I don't know what it's like in your family, like half my family has that accent. So I grew up, my mother, like it was, this is what I had in my ear all the time. So it is something that I can tap into because it is all around me. Now, what's interesting is sometimes I'll play like an Afghan woman and that accent is slightly different. And I really try and honor it. And if anyone who is not, how should I put this? If I'm asked to play something I really am not, like an Afghan person, but there's something about the cultures that are very similar, but it's also about who's asking me to do it. And I try and be very, very mindful of that. Is it an Afghan team? Is there someone on there who can speak to this and our similarities? But it's true that performing in different languages brings out different parts of yourself or myself, I'll say, for sure. For sure. That
very curious on your French too, because you've done so many French productions and plays and TV stuff as well, where you're speaking full French.
I just shot a series.
I want to talk about that because I know Corinne Leduc, so I'm curious about that too. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. What's it like for you to work in French versus in English?
I'm so grateful that I can, because it's opened so many different perspectives and doors and opportunities. And I also write in French. Listen, I never formally studied French. Not really, like not beyond. So I always have a little bit of the imposter, like,
yeah,
I'm not. And I'm constantly amazed when another opportunity comes up in French. I'm like, they haven't figured it out yet. I'm
doing great so far, covering my tracks.
They haven't figured it out. Because I even wrote a play that ended up having its world premiere in France and then kicking off the season at Théâtre Français de Toronto. And that was such a mind-blowing experience to me. I was like, what? Because it always
Didn't
feels...
it garner a Dora nomination?
Not that particular one, but I have been on other writing teams for plays. And again, I was like, okay, great. They still haven't figured it out, which is,
I think you're good now, Lara.
I
think you're good.
I know. It's such a common thing with women, isn't it? But it's so fun because there's such a vibrant Francophone community in Toronto that
yes,
I would not have been able to tap into. And it's such a different way of conceiving of the world, like as all languages do, right? They have a perspective. And I've been able to not only work on projects, but meet a whole other community of people and wonderful people that I never would have had the chance to do. So yeah, it's a gift. It's a great gift, I have to say.
So on that note, I do want to touch on some of your film TV projects, and I definitely want to get to Siranush as well. The languages thing does come back into play because there's Foreign Tongue, which you just recently shot with Kimberly Sue Murray, who was also a guest on our podcast.
That's great.
And then there was the new Francophone series 1111 with Karine Leduc, and then there was Saint Pierre, which I'm curious about as well because you had I'm assuming you had to travel for that one as well.
Yeah, we actually shot on the island of Saint Pierre, which had always been on my bucket list.
Okay, maybe start with Saint Pierre then and that experience because you were recurring on that show. How was that experience for you?
That was super fun because often with Francophone characters here, anything that's Québécois, it's just get someone else because I cannot do a Québécois accent to save my life without sounding so caricatural and awful. And I don't mean to make fun of it at all. I'm incapable. So whenever I speak French, I have a pretty clipped Parisian accent. And the character that I was playing was Parisian. So it was and I was like, oh, beautiful. I know this person. Like the very intellectual, sharp French person they're not mean. They're just they just do not suffer fools gladly. So it was really fun to bring that and get to learn about the world of coroners. And, I went all in on the research and then we got to shoot in Saint Pierre. The majority was shot in Newfoundland and St. John's, but there were some exterior shots in Saint Pierre. And the way that it worked out with my shooting schedule is that I had a few days off there and I got to wander around, and it had always been on my bucket list, as I said, because it was so intriguing to me that 25 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland, there's a piece of France. It's French. You need a passport. You can fly to anywhere in Europe without a passport once from there. Everything is in euros. It was so fascinating to me. So I love that about the work when you get to
travel.
Experience. Totally.
Yes. That's like the dream.
It was the dream. It was the dream. And then 1111, slightly less exotic, but Hamilton is also super fun.
I mean, there's different culture there for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's where 1111, it's still being shot. I was just there this week, finishing up my days. It's been there a few weeks ago. So yeah, it's a great script.
I take a Meisner class with Karine. I love what she's doing. So that's exciting. And then Foreign Tongue. What was your role in Foreign Tongue?
So
that was a great script too. That was a fun one.
It was such a fun one. And I actually know the writer of that script, Cynthia Ashberger. She directed me in a play a number of years ago. We stayed friends. And then I remembered when it was a musical, I saw it because it started off as a musical.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It was a musical at either Summer Works or Fringe. I can't remember. And then Cynthia continued to develop it. And then it grew into the script, non-musical. And so in that one, I played one of the members of the ESL class, that Kimberly Summer's class. And what was beautiful about that experience was originally, again, she was Afghan. And on the first day of the shoot, the director came up to me, Boris, and he said, how do you feel about this character being Afghan? I said, it's fine. I can totally do it. And then I paused and went, but does she have to be? Can we change her? He said, what do you want to do? I said, can we make her Armenian from Lebanon like me? I said, done. And we changed her name, and it was the first time I've actually played my ethnicity, my real one, on film. And it was actually so moving. I kind of had tears in my eyes after the first take because Armenians are not that well known. And I don't know, it was very moving to be able to do that.
It is moving. I kind of have felt that similarly with House of Bernarda Alba. I mean, not to the same extent at all, but there was something meaningful about playing like a Spanish woman from the town, literally like where my father grew up. You have this connection
absolutely
to that.
There's
something there,
something
and
there.
it is more meaningful, I think, when you get to like present, your culture.
Yeah, for sure. I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it was very emotional for me. I remember like I was very proud. I wanted my father to come see it. And yeah, I just remember that being meaningful. It is meaningful.
It is.
So on that note, I want to talk about Siranush, which I got to see at Ruta's in 2022, I believe. And it's a multimedia, multilingual one-woman show. It explores your desire to dig deeper into your cultural roots. It's going to be remounted at Next Stage at the Tank House Studio with Soul Pepper, July 2nd to the 13th. So that's very exciting. Can you share how this show was developed, generally what it's about and what it means to you?
Sure. Yeah, the show is a very special one to me, for on so many different levels. In terms of how it was developed, what happened was I went to Armenia, which I'd never been to as an adult, because my family is originally from Lebanon and Syria. So I know those countries quite well, spent a lot of time there, and, haven't been back recently because of the situation there, but always felt very connected. Yeah. But as an adult, I got to go to Armenia a few years ago, and I went to this museum. And while I was in the museum, I came across this portrait of this woman. And in this museum, there were no other women. Like it was lovely, but I was like, who is this woman? And I found out that she was a 19th century actress who had been the first person to play Hamlet in the non-Western world. And wow. I had this encounter with this, I'm going to call it an ancestor that I didn't even know I had. And from there, the more I learned about her, she had established her own theater company in the 1880s. She had gotten married. She had gotten divorced again in the 1880s and had spent years traveling, performing these stock characters, like in repertory, I should say, all over the Caucasus and the Middle East. I just became obsessed with her. Who is this person? I find it hard enough to juggle motherhood, artistry, creativity, being from a certain place and being put into a certain box, which she certainly was as well. Today, right now, here, how did she do it over 100 years ago? Like, I just found that so mind-blowing that there was this person. And why didn't I know about her? Why hadn't I ever heard about her? Why in our own culture did we not speak about it? And also why in the larger culture, in terms of artists, like I don't expect, the person on the street to know about Sarah Bernhardt, but I would say most people in the arts community know about the pioneering French actor who, played Hamlet and all of that. It's like, why don't we know about this person who happens to be from another part of the world that we rarely speak about in our circles? So it started off it was never a biographical play, but it was a play that was very much inspired. And then my director kept pushing me to put myself into it. And I resisted. I was like, no one's going to care. No, she's way more interesting. No. But the search for who she was and how she did it and me trying to figure it out, that became the play as well. Yeah. This idea of like, why are we so driven as artists? Like, what is that? Like, what is the cost of that? What is the reward of that? Who are we in all these different characters? How does artistry or the theater become home when everything else feels unstable? But eventually that became the play. And because she performed in numerous languages, way more than I did. She spoke almost a dozen languages, some phonetically. Oh. I know. It's incredible. Again, every fact about her is like, how? Mind-blowing. And she did it until she died. When she was 70, apparently the story is, because it's so hard to find information, but the story is she died on the way home from the theater. She was 75 years old and she had just been playing Marguerite, this character who's a 20-year-old prostitute.
What a way to go.
Talk about going against typecasting. I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm 70 and I can play a 20-year-old.
I can. Have you not seen what I've
Of
accomplished
course.
in my life? So the play really, and about being for sure the Armenian identity and what that means and the language, because it is my first language, where that sits in our body and how we change depending on what land we're standing on and the language that we're speaking. All of these things became a part of the show. And it was a process of about 5 years of development. We got to do excerpts at Caminos with Aluna. Aluna was a great supporter, continues to be a great supporter of the work. And then it felt like such an offering when I made it, we did it in 2022. It was, honestly, having the reaction, it's for everyone to play. I just want to be very clear. It's for everyone. And so many people identify on different levels as an immigrant, as a woman, as a mother. Like there are so many different points of entry into the show. But I will say that having other Armenian women come up to me and go, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. Or I didn't, you put words to something that has been brewing inside of me and I didn't know what it was. And that was with tears in their eyes and whispering to me and pulling me aside. And that was an incredibly meaningful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting tears in my eyes right now.
I know.
This happens all the time. A really good friend of mine is Armenian and her family. So I know that the Armenian Day of Remembrance happened fairly recently in April.
April 24th, last week.
April 24th.
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just something that's so unknown. Like I have one Armenian friend and that's the only source of like information, right? And then you can Google it afterwards, but it's like they don't talk about it.
They really don't talk about it. It's true. And I will say, just very recently, there were 2 wars on Armenia and Artsakh, which is an Armenian republic within Azerbaijan. In 2022, there was another ethnic cleansing of that area when 150,000 Armenians were literally kicked out of land that had been occupied by Armenians for thousands of years. Churches desecrated, tombs desecrated, cultural artifacts desecrated in 2022. So when we were doing the show, it was in the fall of 22, this was actually happening at the same time. So it added a whole other layer of what the performance was about and about the idea of the resiliency and the way of and language. Like it was, as I said, it added another layer and just made it that much more.
And Lara, so you are a writer. Like you said, it took 5 years to develop this piece. And I imagine you're not working totally in silo. You're developing it with others.
Yeah, with my co-creator, my director and my co-creator was there the whole way.
Do you feel, as you're saying this, a responsibility as a writer? What stories are you drawn to? What is your writing process? Is it collaborative or it starts off in a silo and then you open it up? If you could just share a little bit about your voice as a writer.
That's a super interesting question because so Siranush started off where I just had these monologues. Like it was, and they were all from Siranush's point of view, where I would just like an idea would come and it was just monologue after monologue after monologue after monologue. And then I amassed a large amount of monologues, but I held onto those for a bit. And then with my director and co-creator, the wonderful, wonderful Carla Mello, I knew that I also wanted the show to not be linear, to have a devised aspect to it as well. So we would take those pieces, put them in the room, and then kind of break them apart and see what held and what didn't. And then I would go off and write and come back and create it that way. I was also very lucky to be part of Nightwood Theatre's Right from the Hip program with this and got to not physically go back to Banff because it was in COVID, but got to return to the Banff Center of the Arts as part of the Playwrights Lab, which was amazing. That was for 2 years and continue to develop that piece with a dramaturg. And then my next play, Conviction, was a commission by Toronto French Theatre and started off as a podcast. It was during COVID. And they wanted something that would be on Radio Canada, which is the equivalent of CBC in French. So it was broadcast all over Ontario, provincially, on all of the Radio Canada channels. And that eventually grew into a play. And that was much more just me in a room writing. And then we had a workshop where it was with the actors, and I worked a little bit with the dramaturg beforehand, but that was much more of a kind of classic play in that we went in, worked, I would come back and go away and write, but there was some work, devised work, but very, very minimal compared to Siranush. And in terms of the practice itself or what I'm drawn to, it's always the outsider, the person who doesn't belong, like the person who's just kind of looking in and going, what's going on here? Yeah. It doesn't, Conviction, the play in French, dealt with being bilingual a little bit, like French English, but not so much with languages. But it's interesting because, and I have no idea, but I have been mulling this. I have another idea for a play, which I won't speak about here. But what's been interesting is lately I've had these flashes of these two brothers who are talking, and I've never, like, as a play idea, and I've started to develop that, and it's never been something I was like, I'm going to write. I've written men for sure, but I don't have a brother. I didn't grow up, I have a sister. So there's something there that I'm like, I need to discover. There's the unknown. There's something about the unknown that really excites me at the moment with that.
Yeah. And I love that you get these flashes.
Yeah, it's like downloads.
It's downloads. It really, honestly, that's how my French podcast started as well. It was literally, I heard the voice of this 14-year-old girl in my head, and she started to just talk. And I was like, well, okay, we're going to listen to you. And that's how it's starting. So there's something, I love that. Downloads.
Yeah. I had a question about, so writing obviously for other people is different, but like writing for yourself and then learning the lines, like, do you find that you change them up on the spot? Do you feel at liberty to do that? Or do you really try to stick with what was agreed upon?
So you would think it would be so much easier learning your own lines. And everyone who told me that it wouldn't be, I poo-pooed. I was like, come on, I wrote it. I didn't believe it. I would nod my head in agreement and then not believe it. And it's actually true. It doesn't make it any easier.
Okay.
I did really try and, once we got to production for sure, really try and stick to, because we had worked so hard. But also, sometimes I would it's like, nah, it's the idea of it. Like, I know what the idea is. So unless it's a cue line, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
But I would try and respect it, because I knew, like, honestly, the amount of time I would spend thinking, is that a the, or is that an or should I put a comma here? Like, things that you would think. And I have so much more respect for playwrights after having gone through it.
Yes.
And so if they write the or whatever it is, I know that they have spent hours thinking about that. That nothing is casually put on that page.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
This is also the difference between theater and film. I just remember on House of Bernarda Alba, when we all got together to do a table read, and, in theater, you get to luxuriate over the words. You get to, like, have lengthy conversations, even about a single, like, sentence, a single line in the play, to really get to the heart of, like, what is this person trying to say? Whereas in film, when you have, or TV, when you have 48 hours to throw an audition down, you can't luxuriate as much as you'd like to, as you would in theater.
Nope.
Right. And then even once you get the job
on set,
you're on set, they're like, you know what? We've decided this doesn't need to be here. We're going to say this instead. And you're like, oh, okay. What was that again? Let me just write it.
I can do that. I'm going to do it right now.
And then the golden retriever, like, yeah.
Rehearsal, as we know, is oftentimes not for us. It's for the crew, right? Like, just for them to just stand here, do the thing. And it is something.
It's for you to say, okay, so you need me here. Why would I go there? Can we, like, put a cup there or something? Give me a reason. Give me a reason, please.
So on this idea of, like, film, TV working, I want to kind of bring that into the idea of this podcast, which is, like, balance, work-life balance, being a mom, and juggling all the things. Lara, you've had to travel a lot, especially with theater. The schedule can be a lot of evenings away, a lot of rehearsal time. So I just want to get your sense, how do you manage to juggle it all? Do you have a strategy, an approach?
Call everyone you know and ask them to help. That is my
Yeah,
call
I was just gonna say
all the family members.
What are your challenges when you're in this industry with having kids and please share.
Yeah.
Hardest.
We'll get into it.
It's the hardest.
Yeah.
Did it make you like second guess having a family, or did you think you
All the
could, or did
time.
you?
Oh yeah. Well, before having our son, I was like, how can you do it? How can you do it? Like, it's impossible. And everyone I spoke to said, you'll find a way. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, you'll find a way. I was like, I don't see how this is. Okay. I'll have faith. And then the guilt. Oh my Lord. It is real. It is so real. So hard. Theater, like you said, Monica, like the least family friendly. I know, when you're on set, you have long days, but oftentimes you're not working on the weekend. Like there's some sort of, and theater is, especially when they're little is so hard. Yeah. Try to, thankfully, family steps in, and something really actually beautiful grew out of that. Not just in like the expected family ties, but my father, who is a teddy bear brought to life, but was never very much present when we were growing up because he traveled a lot with work.
And which was totally acceptable.
I was about to say super duper normal, never a problem, and was never, he wasn't the disciplinarian or anything like that. And then with our son, my dad happened to he retired, had a lot more free time. And he was the one who kind of took up a lot, like dad, like last minute, like dad, this is what's happening. Oh my God, I have an audition, right? And especially back in the day, you'd have to be in person, or there were workshops, whatever. And so he came in and he created this really beautiful relationship with our son. That was because I was absent so much.
Right. That's the silver lining, right?
It was the silver lining. And for sure, ours, like with other family members as well, but other moms in the industry find allies, but there is judgment, like full stop, I think, on women who do it and women who go away. And, there's a lot of judgment that's hard to take. You have to be so sure. And then sometimes you're not. Is this worth it? Is what I'm doing worth it to this?
And sometimes it's also looked on like, oh, you're flying off to be some like movie star. And it's like, well, it's still work. Like, would you prefer if I had to leave to like wait tables? Like, is that more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like you're indulging in a hobby. That's, that it's like, oh, well, and it's true. I do get to do this for sure. And also it is work. It's
a lot of work.
It's so much work.
It's not easy. And I think that's the misconception. I think people, like you said, they think it's a hobby. You're playing dress up or something.
Right.
Exactly. And if you get like 3 auditions and they're both due in 48 hours, you have to come up with 3 different characters, 3 different looks, and then you have to tape each one, edit each one nowadays, and find a reader. Like this is not a simple task, like it takes time. And then how do you do that without abandoning your kid and,
absolutely
still being present? So I think that's sometimes the challenge, is finding the balance of, some through line that we're seeing with guests with kids is that you start to get to a point where you're like, I can't abandon everything, right? Like you do have to at some point be like, find a way to work that makes it more feasible.
Yeah.
Or, at this time I got to shut down because I got to give my kid, 2 hours of my time or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe it means that this is going to suffer over here, but it's like, but that's the thing, is like, you can never have it all at the same time.
Sure.
It is just a balancing act.
Yeah, for sure. And burnout is real.
It's real. And that's the thing about this podcast, is like, we're trying to highlight those specific challenges that, women who are juggling family life and this kind of artistic path are facing, because it's very specific and it's not easy.
It is not easy. The other thing I do is, I know, Monica, you and I talked about this in the room, but whenever I'm in a room or on set, it's like, seek out the other mamas. Like, the first question I always ask, how do you do it? Like, I want to, but there's also a sense of camaraderie, or I've got your back. Cause sometimes I'll speak for theater, cause this has happened to me, where I'm the only parent in a room. And as lovely as people are, and if you don't know, you don't know. Like, if you're not on the other side of it, you don't know.
Pet isn't the same.
It is not
like, because you get that too, and you're just like, Yeah, but you could leave a dog for 8 hours and then pay somebody to walk in for $20 and take your dog for a walk in the middle of the day,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they're good.
Mhm.
I get it. They're lovely. I love dogs. I love them. But,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
fine.
It's
They're
not
fine.
Yeah, they're
it's
going to
not
be fine.
apples to apples is what we're saying.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Laura, I'm curious also if you have any advice for actors who might be struggling out there, who are trying to, further along their career. Do you have any advice or any advice that you received from a mentor along the way? Anything that you'd like to share?
Two things, I think. One is keep training, like honestly, in all the different ways, like they all feed each other. Also, I'm so nerdy. Like, I love it. I love training. You also meet so many people and people who are creating things. Like, keep immersing yourself in places where people are making things, whether that be a play, a podcast, a web series. Like, I think in this industry, it can be easy sometimes, especially right now when we're doing self tapes and we're no longer bumping into people in the audition room, and to feel siloed.
Community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, see things, keep nourishing yourself in all the ways, like the things that inspire you. And I would not have and the second piece of what I'm going to say is find out what makes you you and go all the way with it. Because honestly, I would never in a million years have guessed back in theater school that the things that actually made me different are my superpower now in this industry. Because back then it felt like I didn't fit in, or it felt like, if I entered the room, like I'd have to leave a part of myself behind. So it really, but the more that we work, and Ginny, this is a little bit what you were saying about how well do you know yourself? How well can you bring that to the table when you are looking at the characters and what you do? That for sure, like be you, be you, be you, be you, be you. Because there's, what's that Oscar Wilde quote? Be yourself, everyone else is taken.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
But
that. That's such a
it
good
is
one.
kind of
Yeah.
your superpower, because no one else is going to be, first of all, no one else is going to be as good at it as you are, as good at being you
Yes.
as you are. Yeah. I think that's what I would say.
That's
Nourishing
good.
yourself.
Yeah.
And make the call. You dropped that piece of advice
You
earlier.
know what? A mentor, I will pass this along. A mentor said this to me once, and I always say this to all the students. It doesn't matter who you know, it's who knows you. So that idea of like, so-and-so is really well known like everyone knows there, but great. Do they know who you are? And that doesn't mean you have to be fake or schmoozy or anything. People will always respond to genuine enthusiasm and a genuine connection to what they do. I find, especially in theater, people are pretty casual. Like if you, reach out to someone and say, can I take you for a coffee and pick your brain? Honestly, most of the time people will say yes. So don't be scared to do it.
And if they don't respond, or if they say no, or not today, or whatever, it's not personal.
Absolutely.
It's just like not right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we end, I did want to hit on Kim's Convenience, because it is one of our most beloved shows to come out of Canada and in Toronto. And you played Mrs. Ada, which is a great character. So how was that experience? And then sort of the ending, like how it ended. I know it was it kind of ended abruptly.
It did. And I have to say, Kim's was so special on many levels. When I got that role, it was only supposed to be for one episode that Mrs. Ada came in.
I love that.
Yeah. And I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was towards the end of that I think it's the second season. I can't remember. It was towards the end of the season. And then the new season was starting up, and my agent contacted me and they're like, they want to bring you back and make you recurring on their shows, which was so lovely. And they just expanded her. It was such a delight, because I loved that character. That was one of those examples of like, oh, I am so proud to represent this person, and I love her, and she's funny and quirky and all the stuff. So so I got to be on from seasons 2 to 5. So it was a total gift.
Nice.
The other thing that made it so special is Paul, who plays Mr. Lee. Paul and I went to theater school together. We were super we were super tight. Yeah. And
that's so interesting.
to go back to your question of like a piece of advice, or just, believe in yourself. We were on set one day and Paul just looked at me. He's like, who would have thought that it would have been us that are still like,
Oh,
nobody bet on us, that kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, it was very, I mean, he was fantastic in theater school too. I just really want to say,
right. Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
God, I
so
love
that was
that.
such a so special on so many levels. And it was the first time that I played such a big kind of recurring role. So again, it was on so many levels. And then when it ended, I got a call from the producer who kindly let me know before the word got out. And it was very abrupt. I was like, okay, this is
Did you have more
happening.
episodes or anything? Like, was there anything planned?
Yes, I think, oh my gosh, my brain. I can't remember if he called me and then we shot the 5th season or just after. I honestly can't remember right now. But it was a lovely courtesy about that idea of like being part of the Kim's family. And so he wanted to give you a heads up. And everywhere I go, people talk about that show.
Mm-hmm.
Where, with my students, when I teach, a lot of them come and say like that show meant a lot to me. So it's a very special thing to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, final question, Lara. When you hear the phrase hitting her mark, what does that mean for you? How do you define success in your life, personally, professionally?
That's a great question. Can I answer by saying what hitting her mark or hitting my mark feels like? I'll say it
Yes.
feels like, yeah, it will feel like when I am bringing my full self to whatever it is that I am doing. So as a mom, as a creative, like that I'm using all the parts of me, that feels really satisfying to me, either as a writer, an actor, I'm a dramaturg as well, or as a teacher, mom, a wife, whatever it is. And trust me, that is not always the
Right.
case. Yes. The balancing part, let's go back to that.
Yes.
But when it feels like you hit your mark, it's that like standing and arriving with your full self.
I love that answer
Yeah.
so much.
Great.
Lara, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate
What a
your
pleasure.
time. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was such an amazing conversation with Lara. There were so many thoughtful takeaways, but one of the things that really stood out again, and I feel like this is such a through line with a lot of our guests, is just take the chance, take the risk, have faith in yourself, make the call, and the worst that can happen is that they say no. But
Yeah.
most of the time it's going to work out.
I know, but it's so interesting that we're seeing this through line across multiple episodes where people, when they reach out, it tends, like you said, to work out. So I think that's great advice. And she also teaches at George Brown College and Sheridan. And I love that she's giving this advice to these up and coming artists so that they can get into the industry and hopefully reach out to people. You have to start somewhere, right? You don't move forward on your own. You need to build a community. You need to get involved. Also, she came at it of a place of service. She reached out to the theater company saying, how can I help? What can I do to help you? It wasn't, can you cast me in your next production? How can I help you? And then once she was on the ground and helping out, they recognized her work ethic and they also saw an opportunity for her to perform in one of their upcoming productions. So sometimes it's just, come from a place of service, see how you can help people out, and then maybe an opportunity will show up for you.
Yeah, and that also reminds me of a lot of, like, I think Bryan Cranston was very well known for saying this, how he considers auditions as coming from a place of service. I'm just here to show you what I've got because I think it's going to help you in presenting your story.
Right. In service of the story.
In service of the story. And this is what I think is the best way. Like, this is where I fit in. This is how I can help you. And I think that's a great way to approach our auditions and to remember that when we are, rather than being like, ooh, what do they want? How am I going to become that thing? And instead to be like, no, let's take a step back. What is the story? What is the story they're trying to tell? How can I contribute to it?
Yeah, it's an offer. And also, which reminds me, because we talked a little bit about typecasting and some of the barriers that she had to overcome. And what her mantra was, just keep doing the work, keep doing good work, keep doing good work. And then she was talking, the image of her like, elbowing people out of the way to get to move forward. To make space, exactly. And so that was also really good advice because, the industry can put you into a box. It can typecast you. And sometimes, the difference can be about good writing. If you have a really great script, you're like, yes, I'm on board for this, that we're doing this in a respectable way. But sometimes it's not. And how do you navigate that? Right. And it's about just remembering to come back to the work and focus on the work and do good work and then make room for yourself. And then when you're creating your own work, your own pieces, plays, or that's where you can make an impact. Yeah. And that's exactly what she did. And she's a total multi hyphenate.
Yes, absolutely. And I also love that she's a coach. And sometimes I feel like, when these sort of like bad things happen or these like, comments that people make, these, her being told that she was never going to make it basically because of the way she looked. I think those are such powerful moments that make you stronger. But now that she has reached the level of success that she has, and she's a coach, she gets to share that because, we're all going to hear that. At some point, somewhere, you're going to hear something like that and you want that proof. You want some, I always love to hear when somebody's been able to overcome something like that because it motivates me and inspires me to have faith and believe in myself and keep going.
Yeah. And you are the superpower, right? Like it's you. It's bringing you to the role, bringing you into the room.
Lots of amazing takeaways, the wisdom and inspiration from Lara. I'm gonna like mull over some of those moments too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.